Okay, I'm sorry we're getting... I call meeting to order, please. I'm sorry we're starting just a few minutes late, but that was due to some technical difficulties, but we'll get right on with the program. The first order of business tonight is the Pledge of Allegiance. Johanna, would you come forward, please, and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? That's fine, dear. That's fine.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Joanna. We'll see you just a little bit later. Okay. Next item is the approval of the agenda. I have two changes. Under school recognition, the teacher should be Miss Sarah Street. And the last item on the agenda is the closed session. I'd like to drop that from this month to postpone it until next month. Can I get a motion on that, somebody?
I make a motion we approve the agenda with the necessary changes.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? If not, those all in favor, please. Thank you very much. All right. Now, let's go back to the school recognition here. And Johanna, if you'll come back forward again, please, ma'am. How are you tonight? Great, thank you, ma'am. Okay, if I could read a little something about Johanna. Johanna Faulkner started her 5th grade year with a hunger and a thirst for learning on the very first day. Her passion for everything she does can be seen all over her face. Beautiful face. Anyway, Johanna not only has a passion for learning, she has a heart and compassion for others. Johanna is the first to lend a hand to any student that needs help with even the smallest of things. She is not only an asset to our classroom, she is an inspiration to all of us. Johanna consistently performs at the top of her class academically. Zebulon GT Magnet Elementary is privileged to work with such a fine student. Congratulations, ma'am. And this is something that the town of Zebulon would like to give to you. It says, as an excellent 5th grade student who has a thirst for learning and a heart of compassion at Zebulon GT Magnet Elementary School. Thank you again, ma'am. Now, if I could ask Miss Sarah Street. And you have a beautiful face, too. It's good to meet you, ma'am. If I could, please. Do we know who that is?
It's my son.
It's your son. Well, good, good. Hey, be happy, okay? This is Mama up here, okay? There you go. Wave to Mama. There you go. Anyway, Miss Street is a kindergarten teacher at Zebulon Elementary School. She makes a huge impact on every student in her class. In 1 year in kindergarten, she produced the highest in-class scores on the team with nearly 90% of students meeting benchmark. Last year, in the third grade, she posted the highest EDG scores on the team. Excellence in teaching is a hallmark that represents Ms. Street. And Ms. Street, you got a good son there. Okay, continuing on here, it appears we have two proclamations, and I guess I get to read those two. The first proclamation is for the Firefighters Week, September 10th through September 16th, 2017. Excuse me, what is it? Oh, I'm sorry, pardon me. I skipped ahead of the public hearing. Okay, amending the town charter. I'm sorry, that was deleted from mine. Okay. I'll open the public hearing. Joe?
Thank you, members of the board. Tonight is a public hearing to consider amending the town charter. I will give some background just so for those that may not be familiar with how we got here. Background most specifically related to the budget that was just recently passed, as well as the legislative process, meaning why are we going through a public hearing, and then open it up to the public hearing itself. So in the budget that was presented to you, there was a recognition that Zebulon is changing both in population and in the use of land, meaning that it's diversifying from an industrial base to a residential base. And so the budget that was put before you had two primary goals. The first goal being that we will have the capacity to meet this change. And so two examples of that. One was to update our thoroughfare plans, specifically to mean that the roads will be wide enough before the traffic gets here. Second example being fire service. Will we have the adequate number of fire stations? Will those fire stations be placed appropriately to serve an expanded service area? Second goal was to have the capability to meet this change. One example of that was economic and community development, where that used to be a focus on trying to attract industrial development, particularly in our town and a lot of towns where changes downtown have left some opportunities for development, that the strategies and the tools that are used for industrial economic development are different than those that are used for retail, commercial, and residential development that are used in downtown. So that was one example of a capability of change. Another example of a capability to change is the process that you're working on right now, which is your strategic plan. You're going through a process right now that will develop the town's mission, vision, strategic priorities, and that will help you not only prioritize what projects to pursue, but as this growth occurs, that you stay focused on what's important and not chase the things that are unimportant to your community. But the germane example for what we're talking about tonight is the capability of our people or our staff to meet this change. Are we offering the training that's necessary to meet the differing needs of a growing population, specifically a residential population? Are we going to be able to attract the talent to serve these citizens? And so what we did is we talked with you during the budget about our current human resource service. We've got two positions that oversee this. We've got an accountant one who processes payroll and assists in benefit enrollment. So when we have a new employee come in, they sign them up for the benefits package. And then our town clerk is charged with the responsibility of interpreting and maintaining the personnel policy, job descriptions, and changes per human resources law. It's also responsible for drug testing. And so the results and then the goals that we've laid out for you during the budget were as follows. So the result is right now we've got a one and done enrollment. And what we're looking to accomplish in the future is have more of an orientation and membership when we bring employees into the organization. So some examples of what goes on under the one and done enrollment is when someone joins our organization, we sign them up for programs. And so those programs, insurance being one example of that, represent where they are when they joined our organization. What we want to do is have something that's more adaptive. So as they grow with us, as they create a family and grow a family, we want their insurance to change with it as well. But we also want them to be healthy so that they can continue to be able to work and keep insurance premiums down. So we want to attend to them and make sure that they remain well. And so wellness is another example of that. Under the one and done enrollment, right now it's individually focused. So when you join our organization, we talk to you about what your needs are as an individual employee. And what we're really trying to do here is build a team. So last year, we spent several months bringing all the employees together. They developed a set of core values that they were all going to hold themselves responsible to. And in going through that process, they realized and appreciated getting to know different employees, not only on a personal level, but to know what they did professionally, so they would have a network of who to reach out to. So an example of how to build a team in addition to the values is developing a shadowing program. So that was one of the goals that we talked about. The other thing that we're realizing right now is we have reactive retention, and really what we want to do is have proactive development of our employees. So one example that we're dealing with right now is we've got salary compression. Might have, as a specific example, a sergeant who has been working for us for several years, and then it comes time to hire a new line officer, and the salaries for a line officer are close to what the long-term sergeant has been making. So having someone who can do market analysis to keep our positions current with what the market is paying is going to help us so we don't get into a salary compression issue. With no overarching oversight of human resources policies, we've got inconsistent application of those policies. Not that anyone is maliciously intending to do something different, it's just that there's no cohesive program to keep it together. So we want to have a program that offers both consistent policies but also relevant policies. Relevant policies, understanding that we've got two types of ways that we provide service to our citizens. One, administrative roles that typically work 8 to 5, and then shift employees that work in different shifts to provide service. Right now, if someone wants to increase their pay or their responsibility markedly within our organization, they have to wait for a promotion opportunity. Given the small number of employees that we have and the long-term tenure of those employees, those promotion opportunities don't come around very often. So an HR position could oversee more of a development. So as an example, our fire department most recently, we've got some development opportunities where if someone gets certain criteria, certain certifications, that they can become a senior firefighter. And so that they don't have to wait for someone above them to leave a job or get promoted in order for them to get promoted. And then as we shared with you during the budget process, we've got a performance evaluation that is a little bit more in name only, and we want to develop an honest-to-goodness performance evaluation system that not only measures relevant performance, but also accurately measures that performance. And so we put before you what we had done last year, where we kept the town clerk's HR roles in addition to her role being clerk and administrative assistant, IT and phone contact and website maintenance, and relieve a little bit of that pressure by having a part-time administrative assistant come in, someone who could greet people, answer phones, do copying, help out with other meeting minutes, be a backup in some cases, as well as be a backup for website maintenance. And what we came to find out is it's very difficult to fill a part-time position that you intend to make full-time. Either someone comes in as a part-time employee and that's all they want to do, or if someone wants to be full-time, they want to come in as full-time. So it was difficult to fill this position. So what we put before you into this year's budget and what you passed was for a full transition to create a human resources director / town clerk, and then have the backup person to that position be the human resource analyst / deputy clerk. And just quickly go through that the human resource director and the town clerk would remain the board's clerk, would be involved with recruitment and retention, as well as on retirement. So we've got many of our employees are within 5 years of retirement. The question is, have we developed our mid-management employees to be in a position to succeed them? So this would be some of the roles and responsibilities of the human resource director / town clerk. And then the human resource analyst deputy town clerk could take over the clerk's roles as it relates to the planning board, could assist the clerk in things like filing and archiving, could assist with job announcements, employee training, specific projects like compensation surveys, and to serve as a backup or to help take over desktop publishing, web oversight, and IT contact. I will tell you that those last 3 items, I don't see that being a good fit, but somehow, some way, those duties were assigned to the town clerk, and we don't have someone that can take those over. But I see those going to a different position, either internally or with a new position related to IT. So that brings us to tonight. If we're going to combine duties of the town clerk to be with the Human Resources Director, we've got a mismatch in the way that your charter is written. And I won't go through this, but your charter, as it relates to the town clerk, essentially has the clerk reporting to the Board of Commissioners. So the mismatch is having a clerk report to the Board of Commissioners, but when doing the HR duties to report to the traditional reporting, which is to the town manager. So the proposal before you tonight is to change your charter, where if you look at the right, that's the proposed. So anywhere there's Board of Commissioners, it's replaced with town manager. And there is a mention to giving bond and to evaluations, and that's just tied to the manager. So that's the current and the proposed. So why are we coming before you during a public hearing? It's because the legislative process is what dictates what any city can and can't do, and specifically as it relates to the charter, you are a city, or you are incorporated because the General Assembly said you could become chartered as a city. In fact, that's why Chapter 60 of the General Statutes refers to anything related to cities as municipal corporations. You are an incorporation, and the General Assembly gives you that right. In the incorporation, specifically in your charter, there are some specific details laid out about the corporate boundaries, the composition of your board, the procedures and the process to follow on your elections, even the form of government to have. Any revisions to this charter, whether it's to the town clerk position that we're talking about, whether it's to corporate boundaries, composition of board, that has to go through the General Assembly. Since the General Assembly gave this authority and has the right to make the changes, it has to go back before them. And you've done this before. A couple of examples. Back in the 1973 session, you had a House Bill 859 sponsored by your local representative to make some changes to the charter. You had it done again in the 2003-2004 session, where a Representative Edens brought forward House Bill 1674 to make some changes as well. And so that brings us to the public hearing portion. Before you open it up for any questions or comments from the general public, I'm available to take any questions that you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Does anyone on the board have any questions for Joe?
Joe, how long is this, the process, how long will it take to go through the General Assembly and all that before it's approved? Or?
So typically, it will be introduced this spring, not too long after they go into session. There's, as you would expect, several committees, but long and short of it, based on the 2 examples that I gave you, both of those went through in about 2 to 3 months.
Okay. Anybody else? Glenn?
Any information on what the other municipalities are doing in this situation?
I know of other municipalities that have made this specific change from reporting to the board to reporting to the manager. I know of several communities that make charter changes in general. It's a fairly routine process. As far as specifics or numbers, I don't have that available.
Okay. Any further questions from the board? All right, any other questions from anyone in the audience? All right, apparently not. I'll open the public hearing up for anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this. Okay. Hearing none, anyone like to speak in favor of this? Okay, so hearing none there, I'll call the public hearing to a close, and we will attack this situation later on in the meeting. Okay, now, I'm going back to the proclamations that need to be taken care of here. All right, this proclamation for Firefighters Week, September 10th through September 16th. Whereas fighting fires is one of the most hazardous professions, requiring physical strength, stamina, intensive training, courage, and selfless concern for the welfare of others. Whereas firefighters provide valuable services to the citizens of Zebulon and the surrounding areas, and whereas firefighters make sacrifices to protect the lives and financial interests of the citizens of Zebulon, and whereas firefighters respond to emergencies without hesitation when the call of duty arises, and whereas firefighters have a great appreciation for protecting their communities, and whereas our firefighters are a combination of both paid and volunteer professionals who are dedicated to the service of the community, and whereas the North Carolina General Assembly resolved that the week containing September 11th as Firefighters Week in North Carolina each year. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Commissioners of the Town of Zebulon, do hereby proclaim September 10th through September 16th, 2017 as Firefighters Week, and call upon the citizens to recognize the duties and services of firefighters performed. Adopted this 6th day of September 2016. Chris, you're to be commended for that. Thank you very much. The second proclamation is Child Passenger Safety Week through September 17th through September 23rd, 2017. Whereas keeping children safe from harm is everyone's responsibility. However, on average, 2 children under 13 were killed and 319 injured every day in 2015 while riding in cars, SUVs, pickups, and vans. Unfortunately, these numbers are significantly higher than they were in 2014, showing a 10% increase in fatalities and 4% increase in injuries. In fact, of the past 5 years of available data, 2015 was the deadliest for children under 13 riding in cars, SUVs, pickups, and vans. It is important now more than ever that we take action to ensure the safety of our children, and whereas today all 50 states and District of Columbia and all U.S. territories require the use of car seats for children traveling in motor vehicles. In 2015, of the 662 children 12 and younger who were killed in traffic crashes, nearly one in 3 were not in car seats, booster seats, or seat belt. Of the estimated 116,000 children 12 and younger who were injured in crashes, 6,000 of them were unsecured. Many of these injuries could have been prevented had these children had been buckled up in an appropriate car seat or seat belt. By working together, we can work toward eliminating these preventable deaths and injuries, and whereas that is why the town of Zebulon is committed to educating parents and caregivers about the best ways to keep kids safe while traveling in cars, no matter how short or long the trip. During Child Passenger Safety Week, car seat safety checks will be held across the county. We encourage all parents and caregivers to take advantage of this service and make sure their children are in the right car seats for their ages and sizes, and that the seats are installed correctly. The town of Zebulon has trained personnel in both fire and police departments that can inspect and install child safety seats. Now, therefore, the Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd, 2017 as Child Passenger Safety Week. We urge everyone to help reduce injuries and the tragic loss of life by buckling up their children and themselves correctly. Every trip, every time. Adopted this 5th day of September 2017. And again, Chris, and I don't think Tim's here, but thank you guys for all that you do in taking care of this situation with anyone who comes by. Just out of curiosity, how many do you do per week or so? I see,
We do between 50 and
Is that right? Well, maybe that's 50 or 75 kids that won't get hurt. Let's hope so. Anyway, thank you again. All right, that concludes the proclamations. And let's go on to public comment period. Did we have anybody sign up, Lisa? Nobody wants to speak tonight. I guess maybe I've spoken enough for everybody. All right, now this is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
All right, have a motion?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor? Thank you. All right, now, on to old business. Back to the resolution 2018-05, which is the charter amendment.
The discussion before the board is whether to amend the town charter to indicate that the town clerk will be appointed and supervised by the town manager.
Okay,
All right, I make a motion to approve resolution 2018-05.
all right. I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? All right, all in favor? That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next is planning, and that means Julie. This is special use 2018-01, Tarrant Creek special use permit.
Good evening. All right, for special use 2018-01, it is Tarrant Creek. The joint public hearing was held on August 14th. The planning board met directly after the joint public hearing. And listed in your staff memo for the agenda, I've listed the options for the board and the questions that need to be asked for your either approval or approval with conditions or denial of the special use permit. And in that staff memo, I've gone through and just highlighted the policy analysis with the comprehensive plan, the transportation plan, the traffic, the greenway, bicycle, and pedestrian master plan, the water and sewer allocation policy, the parks and recreation master plan, and the ordinance requirements. Staff recommends approval of the special use case with conditions proposed by staff. The planning board recommended approval of the special use permit with an additional comment in the conditions. Number 48 of the conditions list was amended to include a fence as part of the type C buffer along the western property perimeter. I've spoken with the applicants. The applicants have agreed to this condition. So again, as we presented at the joint public hearing, all conditions have been agreed to by the applicant. And you have a list of the conditions in your agenda. You have the TIA review report, the review report from NCDOT, the supporting maps, certifications, and notices of hearing, the Wake County tax cards for the properties, the deeds, and we did not include the special use permit application or the traffic impact analysis because they're separate books, but we do have those available if you have questions from them. Again, with the joint public hearing being closed, questions are for clarification purposes only, so we can't introduce new evidence. So if you have a clarification, I can answer that. If you need to have a question about something that did not come at the joint public hearing, unfortunately, we won't be able to answer that question tonight. But tonight, we're asking you to make a recommendation to either approve or approve the conditions for the special use permit.
What was the reason behind the fence?
There was a gentleman at the public hearing who was representing his mother along the property on the western perimeter, and he wanted a little bit more screening between her property and his, because right now it's an open field, and he wanted to make sure that the subdivision didn't adversely affect her property. So he was asking for either buffer requirements or a fence to be installed. The planning board felt that was a good idea to protect their property and decided that the fence would be along the western perimeter of the property.
And you're saying the developer had no problem with that?
The developer agreed to the condition.
What kind of fence would it be, Julie?
As part of a type C buffer, we can do a couple of things. They didn't specify what type of fence for the planning board, and the planning board didn't specify how high the fence, but in our type C buffer parameters for the landscaping definition, we do allow either a berm or a fence. Typically, a residential fence is no higher than 8 feet, and it's a typical security fence, not a chain link fence. So we would fall back on those requirements in the type C buffer for the fencing. So in general would be something along an 8 feet high fence of a typical, mostly screened, and then the vegetation around it would also screen the fence. So you wouldn't just see the fence, you'd see the vegetation around the fence. So it wouldn't just be fence.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? All right. What's your pleasure?
I make a motion, we adopt resolution SU 21801.
Okay, with the total of 65 conditions?
Right, that would be,
Okay,
yes.
May I ask a question?
certainly.
Which conditions, staff or planning board?
Staff. I don't,
Staff and
Staff
planning.
has
and-
no
Planning.
fence, planning board has fence.
we're going to go with planning board.
Right.
Okay, I didn't get that, sorry.
But doesn't that include all of 65 conditions? Okay, that's what I thought. Either way. Okay, got a motion and a second?
Second?
A second. All right. Any more comments?
And that is the approval with the fence, is that correct?
All right. Any other comments? Those in favor? It's unanimous. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Relay for Life.
Good evening, members of the board. Tonight, Zebulon Public Works Department here is share our support for the East Wake Relay for Life's request to use the town hall facility. Before I ask Ms. Vicki Curtis to come up, who's the lead of the East Wake Relay for Life, I'd like to share a couple comments from last year's event, my personal comments. The event, besides being extremely successful, I found a couple comments that I heard different members make or different citizens make as they came to the event. They felt like the event had found a home. It felt like home. It was with a smaller setting and venue that it just felt like a home. It also, that smaller setting led to a sense of greater community. And so I thought those a couple things that stood out when I heard those comments from our past participation with the East Wake Relay for Life. So turn this presentation over to Ms. Vicki Curtis.
Good evening. Before I begin with the presentation, I would like to present the Mayor Pro Tem with a thank you for the town's support over the many years with Relay for Life. The town has supported Relay for Life, I think, since about 2007, and we appreciate the support.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you, ma'am.
We would also like the opportunity to thank the department that directly impacts the Relay for Life, and that is the Public Works Department and Chris Ray. As Chris said, you were kind enough to allow us to move our venue last year from the Mudcat Stadium to Town Hall, and we greatly appreciate that. I echo the same comments that Chris made. I heard a lot of people, visitors as well as relayers, make the comment that it was much more intimate and felt more like home than being on the great big field behind the Mudcat Stadium. Based on the turnout, the visibility, and the comments that were heard, we would like to come back and request another year at the front of Town Hall. The only change that I would like to note tonight is on our application. The time of the event is listed from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. We would like to request 5 to 11 with a cleanup from 11 to 12. Our luminaria service takes place at 9, and last year the only negative that I heard was from the time we finished the luminaria and got back into the activities, it was time to clean up and go home. And they would ask for a little bit more time, which was another hour. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Curtis.
Thank you.
No, I'd like to make a comment. I really think it was an achievement by the committee to move it from 5 County up here to this facility. I really thought it brought a lot to the town of Zebulon. It seemed that everyone out there, to my way of thinking, was very content, and there was just a lot of camaraderie amongst all those people out there. Seemed like more there than there was down at 5 County. Just a comment. Me. Okay, board.
I make a motion we approve the facility use request. Is that what you want?
With additional
I have a what?
With the
With
additional-
the
With the
additional
time
air,
adjustment to
an
the-
hour? Is that what you want, Beverly?
Yes.
Okay. Got a motion.
I'll second.
Curtis seconds. All right, any more questions of Mr. Curtis? Thank you again, ma'am. And all in favor? There you go. Thank you, ma'am.
Members of the board, Zebulon Public Works Department comes before you tonight to request a budget amendment to appropriate $43,490 in FEMA funds and $8,045 out of capital reserve for the installation of an automatic transfer switch here at Town Hall. A couple of the highlights or the benefits of the ATS that's listed in your staff report is the continuous power to all Town Hall vital systems, from phone data, the fire pump, the fire alarm, and HVAC system. And it also eliminates the manual connection of cables, and thus eliminates the human error and the potential for injury and damage to the building. This request is further supported by the town's adopted hazard mitigation plans that talks about taking action to reduce or eliminate long-term risks to human life and property hazards. So with that being said, we request the approval of ordinance 2018-12. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
Is it 12 or 13?
My notes say 12. Lisa, can you confirm? 13 then, please, sir.
It is 13.
2018-13.
I make a motion that we approve ordinance 2018-13.
Second.
Okay. Motion made and second. Any more questions of Chris? If not, all those in favor? Another unanimous. All right.
Thank you, guys.
That takes care of everything except board comments tonight. Glenn?
No.
Don't have a thing to say. Beverly? Okay. Curtis? Nope. All right, Dale. The board-
I go along with
the
the
floor is yours. The floor is yours.
I go along with the board.
All right, I really don't have any comments either, except thank y'all for coming out tonight. I do appreciate it. And manager's report.
No, sir, nothing to add.
And Joe doesn't have anything to say either. I can't believe it. Lisa, have you got anything to say? Nobody's got anything to say. All right, what about, we postponed the closed session, so how about an adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Let's go home.